We're going in, boys. We're gonna find the Colleen Hoover. I've got 10% battery in a dream. Let's see where this goes. Bingo. Hello and welcome to the internet. My name is Mo. I am vibe checking Colleen Hoover today. Truthfully, the only promise I made to myself is that it wouldn't take me 8 months to make another video, and it didn't yet. In my defense, I frequently forget when I come up with a video idea that I have to read and or watch whatever it is I want to make a video on in order to talk about it, and that takes varying levels of effort depending on how enjoyable it is or isn't. If one person can confirm to me that they're taking care of their work, hygiene, friends, and hobbies, I would be impressed. And I also won't believe you. So, let's get into it. I had a list of authors that I wanted to do like a vibe checking thing on, which is essentially just reading their books to figure out what the fuck everybody's talking about. Because I feel like everybody has a Colleen Hoover think piece. I know that she's one of those authors that TikTok has been trying to make me read ever since I downloaded the app. You can't go anywhere on Book Talk without seeing Colleen Hoover's name. And yeah, I felt left out, but we fixed that today because I've read 3, almost 4, but we'll get to that in a second, Colleen Hoover books with my own eyes, and I have formulated my own opinion. I also wanted to confirm my suspicions that TikTok will honestly recommend anything. If the numbers are there, TikTok will recommend it to you regardless of quality. So I'm just gonna go ahead and put this disclaimer right here. I'm not here to award anyone a scholastic prize. Simply everything here on in is a vibes-based assessment. And my qualifications are that I have eyes and I know how to read. I had a list of Colleen Hoover books that I wanted to read for this video. I made it through 3 of them before I tapped out. Technically there was a 4th one, but I DNF'd it and we'll talk about it later. But I figured the best way to go about this video is to just go chronologically. So let's get into it. I feel like drinking that at 7 p.m. is actually a bad idea. Too late. You know... I'll go ahead and say it, Miss Hoover.
You had me in the first half with this one, I'm not gonna lie.
This is the first Colleen Hoover book I've ever read. I was kind of low-key expecting a romance. I just assumed that Colleen Hoover recommendations were always romance recommendations. More on that in a bit. So when I opened this book and the first page is like somebody getting hit by a car and our main character getting brain matter and blood and guts on their person on their way to an interview, I thought to myself, surely that's not the first page of a romance. And it's not, technically speaking. So, good, I guess, for that. This book is about our main character, Lowen Ashley. Spelled with an E-I-G-H, the way the good Lord intended it. One thing about Colleen Hoover with this book and every book is that she decided that if she was gonna make up a name, that she was gonna go absolutely balls to wall with these name selections. And if nothing else, and there is nothing else, I respect her for that. Oh, by the way, if you have not read any of these books, I wouldn't recommend it. But also, I'm gonna spoil them all because I have some shit to say, especially about the next one. So, sorry in advance, I guess. I don't know. So, Lowen Ashley is hired to be a ghostwriter for an author named Verity Crawford. Just try not to get caught up in these names, babe. It's really just gonna go downhill from here. Verity was in some mysterious accident with mysterious injuries, and now she's like comatose? She can't like move or do anything on her own. She like has a person that needs to help her, and like her husband's helping her with a lot. But she has a book series and they have a contract for the next book to come out. And obviously if she's comatose, she cannot write the next book. So they have Lowen Ashley hired to be a ghostwriter for Verity. So this book is essentially just Lowen discovering who Verity is, what happened to her, and what she's done, all while trying to justify sleeping with her husband. Because this book, much like all of the Colleen Hoover books that I've read, is not a romance, but it's also not a romance. So this journey consists of Lowen finding what she believes to be an autobiography written by Verity, presumably before the accident, obviously, depicting her relationship with her husband and how much she loves sucking dick and cock and how much she hates her children. And it is, as you could probably imagine, very annoying to read. It's annoying to read, but we can assume at this point that that was an intentional choice by Colleen Hoover, because this is the first book that I read, so I was giving her the benefit of the doubt. So Lowen reads this autobiography instead of doing her job, which is not the point, but also is to me, and gets to a part of the book where Verity murders her daughter. So she shares this information with the husband, whose name is Jeremy, by the way. So she shares this information with Jeremy, and then she and Jeremy together murder Verity. You know how you do. Honestly, very spooky, very exciting, kind of cool. Like I said, I like this book. You had me in the first half, Colleen. The issue is when we discover, after Verity is dead, that the autobiography was not an autobiography, actually. It was like a writing exercise. It was like a coping mechanism suggested by a therapist for Verity to work through her grief, I guess. To work through her grief of losing both her one of her daughters drowned and one of her daughters had an allergic reaction. So, like, this is like to help her deal with the grief of that, I guess. The twist itself is fine. The problem is that we find out about this twist through a letter that Verity wrote for some reason. Hold on. Oh, she wrote the letter because she was faking being incapacitated so that she could take their third child, who is still alive, and run away. Which, just by the way, if you were going to do that, the best way to get away with it is to not write it down, but that's neither here nor there. And the reason she was going to do that is because the reason she was in an accident is because Jeremy had actually already found the autobiography coping mechanism thing the therapist had her write and tried to kill her. And then he didn't do that well enough, so then she survived, and then she was like incapacitated, and then he felt bad, I guess, finishing It's not funny. I guess he felt bad finishing the job, so it gave her time to plot an escape with her son. That obviously didn't work out because Lowen came and fucked it up for everybody. She was just so desperate to find... What's crazy is Lowen only wanted to... She wants Verity to be guilty of what she's guilty of so that she can f Verity's husband and not feel bad about it. That's what Lowen's motivation is, which is insane. The twist, like I said, in and of itself is fine. Finding out that Verity wasn't actually incapacitated, finding out that Jeremy tried to kill her originally, it's like fine. The problem is we discover this letter after Verity dies in the floorboards. Lowen reads the letter and it just kind of feels like a really hastily written cop-out of finding an actual like way to do this reveal. Like, we couldn't find a way to do this reveal in a way that's interesting or entertaining or good, and so we just put it in a letter that Lowen destroys at the end. Lowen's not concerned that she's now in danger. Lowen truly believes that Jeremy's violent tendencies, mind you, he tried to kill his wife twice. His wife, mother of his 3 children, tried to kill her twice. But she doesn't have any fears that that violence could be turned on her at all. She's just convinced that that violence died with Verity, and she and Jeremy and their 3rd child, whose name honestly doesn't fucking matter, are gonna live happily ever after. Hello, precious baby! She committed murder for a man that she barely knew, so she could be with him, and she's just fine with that. She's fine with that, and she's not worried. This book wasn't the worst. That ending really prevented me from enjoying it, though. So, this is also one of the many, many horrible men that Colleen Hoover writes in these books. It makes me think, does Colleen Hoover hate men? Because I do, after reading her books. So, let me take a drink before I even touch this book. Oh, this book makes me so angry. This book is a horror. I do not care what justifications we are making for this book. It is not romance. This is a horror. I also thought this one would be a romance, and I was also wrong again. I read a lot of questionable shit, and none of it makes me feel as icky as this book does. Colleen Hoover has a knack for writing just the worst, most nasty, despicable men, and this is no exception. I hate these motherfuckers. Lock them up. Holy shit. But I digress. This book is about a man, a trash, garbage, asshole man named Leeds. Don't even talk to me about his fucking name, okay? Leeds is in a band. He's a bassist in a band, and he performs with this band at a wedding, and at this wedding he meets a woman named Layla. Now, this book is 100% told from Leeds' point of view, which nightmare. Get out of here. I also listened to this as an audiobook, and the voice actor has just the spookiest voice. He did a good job as a voice actor. He sounds like a creep. I think Leeds is a creep. I think it works out really well. But oh my god. This story is structured in a way that makes sense if you're reading it, but it has a lot of time jumps back and forth, so I'm just gonna tell it in a chronological way, because I don't think you benefit in any way hearing this story the way that it's written. Just know that as we're piecing each part of the story together, we're cutting back and forth between, like, how they met, and how they get to this Airbnb, how they get to this bed and breakfast, and also cutting to the present day, where Leeds has Layla tied to a bed and will not let her leave. Okay? So Leeds is playing this wedding that's taking place at a bed and breakfast, and Layla is an attendee at the wedding because it's her sister's wedding. And TLDR, they end up hooking up, and they end up staying a couple of days at this bed and breakfast just to, like, have a lot of sex, I imagine. And they end up together after that. It's pretty much they hook up at this wedding and then they're together for the rest of the book. And the thing, according to Leeds, if you listen to the words that Leeds is saying, the reason he falls in love with Layla can be summed up in pretty much one sentence. Layla is obsessed with Leeds. She thinks he's the most handsome, the most talented, the most amazing. She's always hyping him up. She believes in his career more than him. She's encouraging him, and he loves that, and he loves the way she makes him feel. That's important. Keep that in mind for later. That man loves her because she is obsessed with him. That's what he loves about her. That, and she's hot. This man is the worst. So fast forward a few months, and Leeds and Layla are now living together. Who gives a fuck where this book takes place? Leeds and Layla are now living together, and they're officially together, and Leeds posts it on his Instagram. And when he posts it on Instagram, Sable sees it. Now, who is Sable? Well, Sable is Leeds' ex-girlfriend, and also his stalker. Because it would appear that being obsessed with Leeds is a prerequisite into being in a relationship with Leeds. It does not matter if he likes you, if you're interesting, if you have anything going on about you. If you're obsessed with Leeds, you're all good. That you can be in a relationship with Leeds. His and Sable's relationship does not end well because she's his stalker, obviously. So when he posts Layla on his story, Sable shows up to their house and shoots them both with a gun. Oh, what? You didn't see that coming? Well, to be more specific, and it is important to the plot, Sable shoots Layla with a gun, and then tries to shoot Leeds with the gun, and then Leeds tackles her and shoots Sable with the gun. So fast forwarding again, Layla survives the shooting, actually, and after some brain surgery and rehabilitation and PT, Leeds decides that he's gonna take them both on a vacation to the B&B where they met to improve her mood. Because you see, after the shooting, Layla's not acting like herself. And if you ask Leeds, what that boils down to is mood swings, and she's not really obsessed with him the way she used to be. She got shot in the head by his ex-girlfriend that, by the way, he never mentioned. She never mentioned that he had a stalker or that she could be dangerous, none of that. She gets shot in the head by his ex-girlfriend, and he is annoyed that she is not thinking about him every second of the day. I hate this man. This man is the worst. So, once they get to the B&B, they're doing whatever, they're spending their time in the heated pool. He's like writing music or whatever because she's encouraged him to be a solo artist. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So while they're at the B&B, he encounters a ghost named Willow. Oh, what? You didn't see that coming? So Leeds meets Willow. He has a couple of encounters that are super bizarre. He goes onto a forum, and then he ends up doing ghost hunter shit, and Willow is like moving things around, and eventually he gets Willow to type on his computer who she is, and they come up with the name Willow because she doesn't know anything, really. She doesn't know anything about herself, and also, Leeds is also the only person that Willow knows. She doesn't have any memories before being in this bed and breakfast. She doesn't know how long she's been there. She doesn't know where she came from. She doesn't have any memories of her life prior to being a ghost, but she knows Leeds, which obviously means she becomes obsessed with Leeds. I'm already getting heated. So as time goes on, they discover, the two of them, buddies, old pals, discover that Willow can actually possess Layla's body while she's sleeping. Oh, what? You didn't see that I'm getting real heated about this. I hate this book and I hate this man. But we're not even done yet. So Leeds hates his brain-damaged girlfriend so much that he lets and even encourages Willow to possess Layla's body unbeknownst to Layla, so that they can giggle and kiki, and so you guessed it, Leeds can fall in love with Willow, which then prompts Leeds to hire some ghost hunter guy to come to the bed and breakfast, and then they tell him the story so he can help Willow move on or whatever. It's important to me that you know that Leeds truly hates spending any time with Layla. Whenever she is awake, he is practically counting down the seconds until she falls asleep again so that Willow can take over her body. Her body that is healing from a gunshot wound to the head, by the way. There is a moment in this book where Leeds truly considers drugging his girlfriend by putting sleeping pills in her wine so that Willow can possess her body. He doesn't end up going through with it. I think Willow knocks it out of his hand before he could like give it to her. But holy shit. So I, unlike this book, am just gonna cut to the chase and let you know what the twist is. Sable shot Layla and Leeds shot Sable. Sable and Layla's souls kind of like, because they both died at the same time, but only one of them came back. So Sable's soul is in Layla's body, and Layla's soul came back to the bed and breakfast where they met because it held such a strong memory for her, because she's obsessed with Leeds, you see. So Willow is actually Layla, and Layla is actually Sable. That's the situation. But it is important to me, so deeply important to me, that you know that when Leeds is being the worst man on earth, he does not know that Willow is Layla and Layla is Sable. When he wants to drug his girlfriend, he thinks he's drugging Layla for the crime of not being like herself. It's making me itchy to talk about this. So in the end, Willow / Layla and Leeds decide that they have to kill Sable. Like, kill Sable in Layla's body. So that Willow, it's getting confusing. So that Willow can go back into her body and become herself again. Once Sable is dead for real. And it works. They literally drown her. And it's like, honestly, it's a pretty tense situation. When I was listening to the audiobook, I was like really stressed out. I had to keep pausing it because the guy's voice was really stressful, okay? But it works, and Layla goes back into Layla's body, Sable's dead for good, and they live happily ever after, I assume. If we are to assume that Layla's happily ever after would be to end up with Leeds, I don't think it would be. But that's how it goes in the book. I hate this book. Let's move on. The lights are different. Suck it up. So at this point, I'm starting to really question why I thought Colleen Hoover wrote romance novels. Because, like, I could have sworn that she did. I promise that was what I walked in to think. I went in blind thinking that these are all going to be romances, and they were not. So I asked my friend Katie, hi Katie, if I could borrow her copy of It Ends With Us, because that was the one that I saw the most of, like, promoted around and stuff, and I thought, surely this is going to be a romance. It's pink. It's not. Spoiler alert, it is not a romance. I think someone needs to tell Colleen Hoover that, and I think someone needs to tell the cast of the movie also that this is not a romance, because they don't seem to know that either. I want to start my opinion of this book by saying the book itself, Divorce of Colleen Hoover, is fine. It's, like, not the best thing I've ever read. It's easy to read, and it does tackle the topic of intimate partner violence. It's like a really good conversation starter, a great way to put your foot in the door of the conversation of intimate partner violence. They could have used the book and subsequently the movie as a starting point to talk about the nuances behind why people in intimate partner violence situations don't just leave. And if they had done that, I would say that the good would outweigh any of whatever this is, but they didn't do that, and so here we are. That being said, this book has a lot of things in it and around it. Here are some notes. Ryle Kincaid is a horrible name. The only thing that makes me angrier than Ryle Kincaid being his name is the fact that Lily, our main character, immediately thinks to herself, and I think she says out loud, "That's a great name." It's not. I will not be gaslit into believing that that's a good name. Ryle is not a good name. Lily's full name, by the way, I hear a lot of people complaining about Lily's name being Lily Bloom and she owns a flower shop. I want those people to know that her name is not Lily Bloom. Her full name is Lily Blossom Bloom, and she owns a flower shop. And the only reason that doesn't piss me off more than the Ryle Kincaid thing is because she hates her name. And we have that in common. Lily lives in Boston, and she meets Ryle on a rooftop where he assaults a chair, and then they flirt, in that order. Ryle is a neurosurgeon. Lily does something, but decides that she wants to own a flower shop. It's like a steampunk themed flower shop. And I don't know if my powers of imagination are failing me in this very specific moment, but I think her flower shop sounds stupid and ugly. Lily hires Ryle's sister Alyssa to work in her flower shop because Alyssa is a rich millionaire lady who is bored, and she takes the job because of the plot. I don't think that rich people take jobs because they're bored. They take jobs because their daddies get them jobs. But I feel like that's not really what's important here. Lily thinks that this rich person and her rich husband are good people simply because they donate to charity, which is a stupid thing for an adult woman to believe. So I don't know if that's a Colleen Hoover belief or if that's something that she's just putting into the text so that we think Lily is naive. But I don't think Lily is naive, and I think that that's a stupid take. So Lily grew up in a household where her father was pretty constantly and violently abusing her mother. When she was a teenager, she found comfort in a teenage homeless boy who lived in an abandoned house behind her house, and his name is Atlas. The book goes back and forth between, like, present day, what's happening right now with Lily and Ryle, and the journal entries that Lily made when she was a teenager, which now feels like a really good time to mention. All of those journal entries are addressed to Ellen DeGeneres. Also worth mentioning, this book came out in 2016, which is approximately 3 years before Dakota Johnson went on Ellen DeGeneres and gave me the best moment in pop culture history. That being said, a lot of people think that the Ellen DeGeneres thing is stupid, and it is, but so are teenagers, so I'm gonna let that one pass. One of my biggest issues with this book is with the promotion, and also the promotion of the movie. I haven't seen the movie yet. The movie came out about 9 days ago as I'm recording this video, and I hate the way that this movie is being promoted. I hate the way the movie is being promoted, and now that I've read the book, I absolutely hate the way that this book was promoted. Now, if you are not a romance reader, or more specifically, I guess, a dark romance reader, it's not uncommon for the main characters to be dealing with or have dealt with in their past an incredibly gruesome, violent, abusive situation from their past or present, depending on how dark the romance is, that they are subsequently saved or healed from throughout the duration of the book, to oversimplify it. In those cases, the romance that you're seeing on page is between the two people that you're supposed to be rooting for, right? Which in this case would be Atlas and Lily. Not Lily and Ryle, Lily and Atlas. Lily and Atlas scenes in this book are mostly confined to the journal entries, and there's not that many of them. And while she and Atlas have a couple of scenes in present day Boston where the book is taking place, they are not together by any stretch of the imagination. There is no version of them that is together until the very last page of this book. The majority of this book is written as though we are supposed to root for Ryle and Lily, who Ryle violently abuses multiple times. The only reason I can think of, and maybe my powers of imagination are not doing the most work, right? Maybe they're failing me. But the only reason I could think of that you would do this and promote the book this way and promote the movie this way is if you want people who typically read romance or typically watch romance movies to watch this movie or to pick up this book and then deliver the twist, the gut punch of Ryle abusing Lily as often as he does. I assume that would be done to drive home the message of IPV can catch anybody off guard. And I think that is a very stupid tactic specifically for a book. The only reason I was not caught off guard by the violence in this book is because I was kind of a little bit warned ahead of time. This is one that I didn't go in completely blind. I didn't know what would occur. I didn't know what was going to happen, but I did know that violence was a part of it. And even then, there is a rape scene in this book that made me want to vomit. Am I just too sensitive? Am I just a little snowflake? I feel like catching people off guard with this shit is a horrible idea. I'm so sick. And then to fucking grab your girls, grab your florals, and let's go, ladies. Woo! Like, it's disgusting. It's gross. It's gross. I can't wrap my head around it. So even if we ignore everything that Colleen Hoover has done, including writing Layla, she does not pass the vibe check for this alone, because that shit is sick. And while we're at it, the cast of the movie, y'all don't pass the vibe check either. I don't, and while we're at it, Deadpool, you don't pass the vibe check either. Everybody doesn't pass it. Everyone fails the vibe check. I don't have a lot to say about Slammed because I could not get past the first 20% of the book. Let me double check. Let's see. What percentage of the book did I make it to? I made it about 19% of the way through this book before I DNF'd. Here are some notable thoughts that I did have from that 20% though. We've got horrible names once again, because one thing Colleen Hoover will never do is disappoint you with how horrible these names could be. Our main character's name is Layken. Layken. There's also a character in here named Calder. And this book is about slam poetry, brother. Now, I went to an art school, so I can pretty comfortably say I hate slam poetry. I do not like slam poetry. I cannot watch slam poetry. You might think, well, why'd you pick up the slam poetry novel if you hate slam poetry? And that's a good question. I'll tell you exactly why. Like I said, this is Colleen Hoover's first novel. So I thought it would be a fun little thing to do if I read her most popular one, like It Ends With Us. And at the time, I thought her most recent one was Layla. I don't know if that's accurate anymore, but I thought it was Layla. And Verity were her most recent ones. And then I It ends with us with her most popular one, and then I was going to read her first one ever with Slammed. Here is the description of Slammed, right? I'm going to read it verbatim. Following the unexpected death of her father, 18-year-old Lakin becomes the rock for both her mother and younger brother. She appears resilient, tenacious, but inside she's losing hope. Then, she meets her new neighbor, a handsome 21-year-old whose mere presence leaves her flustered and whose passion for poetry slams thrills her. Not long after a heart-stopping first date during which each recognizes something profound and familiar in the other, they are slammed to the core when a shocking discovery brings the new relationship to a sudden halt. Daily interactions become impossibly painful as they struggle to find balance between the feelings that pull them together and the forces that tear them apart. Only through poetry... It's so fucking stupid. Okay, only through the poetry they share are they able to speak the truth that is in their hearts and imagine a future where love is the cause for celebration and not regret. Does that not sound like they're related? I had to know. I picked up this book because I had to know if Colleen Hoover came out the gates swinging with incest in her debut novel. But it's so unbearable that I only got 19% of the way, so I quit reading before any, twist happened. I read up to their first date. Also, okay, here are some notable quotes from the book, actually. Lakin and Will, who is the name of the guy that she's, the 21-year-old that she's in love with, they have a lot of red flags. When he says, "I'm not big on small talk, Lake. We'll figure all that out later." If you've ever been a teenager on a date with somebody who's not a teenager and they say that, that's a red flag. It's poetry, he smiles at me. It's what I'm all about. I don't know why, but that's a red flag. They go to dude, and I haven't even finished it, but I know that this is the most egregious thing in the book. They go to a slam poetry club thing, and he asks if she wants something to drink, and she orders chocolate milk. He goes, "Chocolate milk? Really?" And she says, "With ice." Huh? Bitch, what? So on their date, Will decides that they're gonna play Would You Rather. Again, if you're a teenager, or you've ever been a teenager, on a date with somebody who's not a teenager, and they want to play Would You Rather, Never Have I Ever, Truth or Dare, or 20 Questions, that's a red flag. Like I said, I didn't get to the part of the book that was a reveal. I googled it though, so that I could find out the truth. Turns out they're not related. And I don't know if that makes me happy or disappointed. I don't know if I've been Shadowhunter pilled, but I thought that twist would have been fucking hilarious. So here's what I found out from Googling the reveal and Googling the plot. He's her teacher in high school. He's her high school teacher. A teacher that teaches her stuff in a classroom in high school. He's a teacher, and she's a high school student. Other than him being her teacher, here's some notable things that happen. Lakin becomes besties with a girl named Eddie who gets violently abused by her mother, and she has a really emotional poem about it in the book. Both Lakin and Will have dead parents. Lakin's mom has lung cancer. Lakin gets sexually assaulted, and Lakin's gonna be the sole guardian for her brother when her mom dies. And I think she and Will end up together despite the fact that he, and I cannot stress this enough, is her teacher. So, I don't need to read that shit. I'm good. Hey, pass. So can someone let me know why Colleen Hoover loves violent trauma so much, by the way? What's up with that? Can you write without that, do you think? Do you think that your stuff won't be interesting if you write without that? Curious. This book put me in a reading slump so long that I almost didn't put this video out. But then I was like, oh, I would have read Colleen Hoover for no reason. And no. So here you go. I feel like the takeaway from any Colleen Hoover book should be, leave that man alone. He is going to ruin your life and disrupt your peace leave that man alone. In conclusion, to say Colleen Hoover is a bad author would be untrue, only because she's written a lot of books and a lot of people read them. A lot of people can't put them down. And I'm never gonna say that anything that gets people to read more is probably a net good, right? I see why people would go on the roller coaster of some of these books and think that because they went on a roller coaster, emotionally speaking, for some of these books, that makes the book a good book. I think people should read more across the board. So in that way, I don't think she is a bad author. But to say that I enjoyed any of the books that I read in their entirety would also be untrue. Each book made me super uneasy, and every single man is the worst man. So 0 out of 10. The end.